Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of The Last Few Pounds. It's been a while since I have posted. I do apologize for that, but there is a reason, and that's because the last time I had a video, I promised that I would make this video, and this video, the preparation for it ended up being sort of a mammoth undertaking, and then I tried to do a video for it, and it took like over an hour, and I thought, no, I have to regroup. So I did that, and now we're finally going to get to the Dr. Fung versus Dr. Greger when it comes to fasting, fat loss, and muscle loss, or any claims related to those three factors. So without further ado, let's get to it. I think the reason why the video, when I first attempted to make that one, went south is because I was trying to make it perfect. So this video is not going to be perfect. It is going to be long though, because there's no way to make this into like a 2-minute video. I just would be doing it such an injustice. So if you like the fact that I'm even covering this, that I'm comparing these two doctors, because when you have two MDs who seem to know their stuff, and when they are totally conflicted, you know, who do you believe? And usually what happens is that the people who belong to one camp, the low carb, high fat camp, usually those same people tend to eat animal protein, animal fat. And then if you're in Dr. Greger's camp, then you tend to be high carb, low fat, and you tend to be on the veggie side. So vegan or vegetarian or whole food plant-based, however you want to put yourselves. And so there's this schism. But I don't like just sticking with your doctor who gives you the information that you want to hear about what you already think is great. It's really important to seriously consider what other doctors are saying. And I mean real doctors. I'm not talking about Dr. Mercola, who, yes, I guess he has an MD. I don't know from where, but I tried to look him up on PubMed to see whether he's published anything, and he has never, ever published any research ever. And from my understanding, he's not a clinician either, so he's just this online doctor who hasn't really done anything impressive, in my opinion. So I mean real doctors who are clinicians, who are in there, dealing with people, helping them out in the way that they know best. So Dr. Fung is not doing anything to purposefully harm his patients. Dr. Greger isn't doing anything to purposefully harm his patients. Both doctors are doing what they feel is best, and something where they both have seen results. Okay, so that's just the context, and I wanted to make that very clear. So I will tell you right now, my bias tends to be more toward Dr. Greger, and so I had to try really hard to check my bias at the door and try to give this a fair evaluation. So that's what this is. All right, so I think context is important. That's why I'm putting it out there. I'm not trying to make the video even longer. When it comes to fasting in particular, they both make pretty different claims. Dr. Fung says that fasting, it burns fat and absolutely does not burn muscle. He admits that at the very beginning of your fasting period, you lose a little bit of muscle, well, not muscle, protein along with fat. But that's because, generally speaking, throughout your day, we tend to be burning both protein and fat throughout the day. That's just what we do. But there's this like little uptick in burning protein when you very, very first start fasting, but then that goes away. And he's relying on this chart. And this chart shows, if you see the one line for fat, after you fast for a little bit, it goes way up. And the protein line, where you're burning protein, which could be anything. It's not necessarily straight muscle. That can be, damaged cells and tissue, and Dr. Fung even says skin counts. So if you have like excess skin that your body needs to go through, then it will do that. That's what he says. So that goes way down after you've been fasting. I mean, it's hard to tell from this chart, but it looks like it's not even a full day. So that chart what's important to know is like, okay, who created this chart and where are they getting their information? So that chart was created by a researcher named Kevin Hall. And what's interesting is that Dr. Greger in his fasting videos also relies on the work of Kevin Hall. So it's interesting because even though Dr. Greger relies on research that Ken Hall has done, he does not ever present this graph in his own fasting videos. So I don't know why that is. I actually tried to reach out to Dr. Greger. I thought it was just, a very small chance that he would ever get back to me. And of course he didn't, because he's too busy, and I completely respect that. But I did try because, I wanted to ask him some of these questions before I made this video, but I couldn't get a response, and that's perfectly fine. I'm just looking at my notes because I have a whole ton, I have pages and pages of notes of reading through not only Dr. Fung's work, but also Dr. Greger's work, of course, and the research that they rely upon for their information. So when you have that graph by Dr. Hall, and that's what Dr. Fung is relying on to demonstrate that we burn fat and we burn very, very little protein when we fast. And Dr. Greger is essentially saying the opposite. He's saying, no, when you fast, you are burning mostly protein and water, and you lose very little fat. And in fact, you would be burning more fat if you just did a very low calorie diet. This is what he says. Okay. So I'm going to put Dr. Greger's graph right here, and this is what he's really relying on to demonstrate, hey, here is a low calorie diet chart, and these people were losing, a good amount of fat, and then they switched to fasting, and then they lost less fat over, I think it was a 2-week period, and then they started eating again a very low calorie diet. I think it was 800 calories, and then they went back to burning more fat than they did when they were fasting. Oh, and by the way, they increased their protein. Okay, so that doesn't make sense. So let's think about this. When things don't make sense in the research, you got to ask yourself why. You can't just take it for what it is and say, oh, okay, so I guess that's the way it is. No. You have to question it. I will say that I have been lifting and doing competitions, doing fitness competitions, and I guess I'll put a couple of photos here for proof in case you've missed those videos. And so I do them every once in a while. And I have been bulking, I've been building muscle, I'm getting ready for another cutting phase. And I like to start my cutting phases with a long fast. So obviously this research is something I was really interested in. If I'm going to be fasting, I don't want to be losing more muscle that I've worked so hard to gain. If I can help it, I want to be losing as little muscle as possible and as much fat as possible. So this is really interesting to me, and it should be of interest to, I think, anybody, right? So, okay, when it comes to all of the research, the totality of the research, it seems pretty clear that you lose more fat on a fast the more overweight you are. So let's talk about Kevin Hall's research. What he did, that graph, it's a computer model that is based on a study that was done a long time ago. Like, it just really, it seems to be fairly accurate. And when it comes to the research and that's what Dr. Fung relies upon, by the way, so just as a reminder, what Dr. Greger is relying on is this study, and it is by last name Ball, and it is an extremely old study. I actually found the original research paper, and it is a 1967 study. There's been a lot of research on fasting since 1967, so that's the first thing. Like, why are we relying upon something that took place such a long time ago? And it literally involved like 9 or 10 people. The group that Dr. Greger was referring to in terms of, very low calorie of, 800 calories a day diet for a while, and then they did a water fast and they lost less fat, and they lost more protein when they did the complete fast, and then they went back on the 800 calorie diet and they actually lost more fat, and all of that. That was based on a group that had 5 dudes in it. I would call that not a representative sample. I think that is problematic to put so much weight and consideration into this 1967 study. And they also say, we're not sure why in the world, after the refeeding on a low-calorie diet, the very low-calorie diet, 800 calories a day, we're not sure why that increased in protein. Well, let's think about this. Okay, so it's 1967. They had a way to measure the protein loss by looking at the nitrogen loss through the urine. And that's what they did, and that's a lot of what's done now, frankly. But they did not have sort of the advanced technology that we have now. And what Dr. Fung seems to say is that your muscles are like kind of like a balloon. I don't think he actually uses this analogy, but something like it. So you have your muscle, it's full, and it's full of glucose, and it's full of water. With every 1 gram of glucose you have, it takes with it 3 grams of water. Okay, so that's why a lot of bodybuilders have glucose and water manipulation prior to a show. I'm not saying that's wise or smart. I'm just saying that's what a lot of people do, because it has to do with how full your muscles look or how flat your muscles look. So when you lose protein, and when that's being measured by nitrogen loss in the urine, that is protein that could be coming from anywhere, absolutely anywhere in the body. So you're going to be going through autophagy, where your body is going to be getting rid of the old and the damaged cells. It's not going to waste its energy on repairing those damaged cells. They're just going to get rid of the damaged cells. And that can be counted or seen and measured as protein loss. You want that. You want the damaged stuff to get out of your body. And then when it comes to refeeding and then, protein increase, it's because your body's going to be taking in those amino acids, assuming that you're on more of a standard diet in terms of your carb and fat and protein ratios, that it's not heavily skewed one way or the other. It was pretty balanced in this research, that your body's going to take those amino acids and then be like basically building up that protein again, but it's not hard muscle. You don't gain 4 kilograms or something of muscle in a matter of a week. That's not going to happen. That's impossible. So your body's building up and breaking out proteins that come from a variety of sources in your body, and that is more likely the explanation. So to say that no, you lose muscle, that is not the right way to think about it. And I don't even think I heard Dr. Greger in his videos say, oh, you lose muscle. I think that he said strictly you lose protein. So there's no problem with losing damaged protein, in my opinion. I mean, get rid of it, right? That's fine. It's that, the muscle fibers, that's what the bodybuilders and everybody probably is interested in, who's thinking about this. So to me, the fact that one study that Dr. Greger relies on is so old, the fact that that group that where it's even highlighted in his videos, that group only consisted of 5 people, and it's 5 dudes. And the fact that even the researchers themselves are like, well, this was surprising, and we were not sure why this happened, and we're sure more fat loss would happen if we kept them on a fasting regimen. Those facts really don't bode well for there to be such reliance on this study. And I think that Dr. Fung, he relies on newer technology, and both of them rely on their own clinical experience. So what's going to happen is that I might get a lot of hate from the low carb community, from the high carb community, and they might be saying, Jesse, well, Dr. Fung, he says you do low carb, so I just don't believe anything he says. You can't throw the baby out with bathwater, because he's not just saying it out of thin air. He's basing it on other research that's been done that's pretty strong. This computer model that he shows, it's a strong computer model. So I don't know what to tell you there. I think that to dismiss somebody outright who has the research to back claims I think that's a mistake. And I think people saying, I'm not going to listen to Dr. Greger because he's, what do people say? It's vegan propaganda. Okay. I don't think that's true. But regardless, you can't just throw out everything that he says and say, therefore absolutely everything that he says is not valuable because I don't agree with his stance or whatever. If you don't agree with something, you have to have a reason why. You can't just say, I just don't feel like agreeing. That is really, it's brainless. I'm just going to be really honest. It's a brainless way to approach the research and your own body and your own health. Not to mention that there is a way to sort of have your cake and eat it too. I'm realizing that's not a great metaphor, meaning you can be a low carb, whole food, plant-based person. You can. It's challenging, and it's especially challenging if you travel, but it can be done, and I've done it many times. I implement that as a strategy depending on where I am with bodybuilding and cutting versus bulking and all that other stuff. But, when Dr. Greger came out with his videos about fasting, I was a little jolted because I thought, man, I really need to rethink this. And I thought, well, what about all that information that Dr. Fung had? And even though I don't agree with Dr. Fung's approach to use animals as a way to do a low carb, high fat, because I don't think that's the only way to do it. You can do it on plant-based diet. So I just, from an ethical standpoint, it's not, you don't have to do it that way. I still have to admit that when it comes to fasting, he has some great research that he's relying upon. And it makes evolutionary sense what he's saying. He says, if you're fasting, it doesn't make sense from an evolutionary perspective for your body to start eating away at its muscle. It doesn't. And if I'm going to get hate for using the word evolutionarily speaking or evolution, anything having to do with evolution, I'm just going to delete your comment because wake up. Seriously. There are lots of people even who have lots of different faiths, and they see the science and they're like, okay, evolution, yeah, that makes sense. We adapted over a very, very, very long period of time. So don't even give me that. But when it comes to Dr. Greger's stance that if you fast, you may very well be wasting away your protein. These are not valuable proteins. These are trash, damaged proteins, and you need to probably get rid of them anyway. Continuing just to eat is probably not going to be the best way to go. Granted, if you go Dr. Greger's way and you do whole food plant-based, for real. So this means getting rid of all processed food. It means really eating only whole foods that are only plant-based. If you do that, will you lose weight? Well, it depends, right? It depends. If you stuff yourself full of peanuts all day long, or worse, if you say peanut butter, it's whole food plant-based, it's a little crushed. That's so calorically dense that you might very well gain weight. But most people, if you stick to greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds, and you have more on the green side, more water heavy plants, and very few seeds and very few nuts, then chances are you're going to lose weight that way. For me, I'm not perfect. I definitely lost weight when I did a whole food plant-based challenge, 30 days. along with 5-2 intermittent fasting. And I'll put that video right here. And I got great results. It was amazing. But when it comes to very low calorie diets or low calorie diets versus fasting, for me, most competitors, they will do this cutting that's like they just cut their calories, and it means they're measuring everything that they're putting into their body. And for me, that is a level of tedium that I am not willing to do in my life. I'm just not. So it's easier psychologically for me just to not eat anything. That's just me. Everybody, there's the science, and then there's what is more psychologically beneficial to you as an individual, because nobody has your psychology. Biology is one thing, and human biology, and say generally speaking for humans, this is great. Okay, that's fine, and we can do that. But what's going to work for you as an individual on a psychological level? That's the real question. And for me, it's easier to not eat anything at all for a limited period of time than to measure every little thing and to be like anal retentive about it. And then to, like, once I stoke that fire and have even a little bit of food for a day, I'm like, a day, that's it. I'm like, okay, now break down all the barriers and I want to eat. Like, so that's just me. And as a matter of fact, I so much still go with Dr. Fung's research on fasting that I am starting a fast today. I'm doing a 3 or 4 day fast, and I guess I'll post a video about that later if you want. And it's gonna be fine. I do them all the time. There's not gonna be a problem with it. And you know, I've built up now for months and months and months, and it's time for me to do a mini cut, so I'm just gonna do that. And I wouldn't do that if I didn't believe in it, if I didn't have my own anecdotal experience, and I know that anecdotes mean not nothing, but close to nothing. That's fine. But be willing to experiment in a safe way for you, and know that fasting completely is not for everybody. I do recommend that you check out Dr. Walter Longo's research on fasting. It's really great. He's out of the University of Southern California. And yeah, check him out. He says that about 10 people in every 100,000 or something. He actually didn't say 1 in 10,000. He said 10 in 100,000 can't deal with the electrolyte problem. That's my cat. Sorry about that, everybody, but if you know me, she's going to be in these videos. So the electrolyte problem being whether you essentially drain your body of essential electrolytes while you are fasting, while you're doing a water fast. She's a parrot cat. It's important to make sure that you are not that type of person, whether that means that you need to be speaking with your own doctor, whether you need to get blood work done, whether, I don't know what that means for you, but make sure that you're doing okay. For me, I know myself because I've done this many times, and I get completely drained when I go on a fast. I'm just really tired, but I make sure that I drink a broth, a veggie broth with sufficient electrolytes in it, and that's what I do. It makes me feel so much better, and that way I don't risk losing out on that balance of electrolytes. So I will put in the description box below, I will put the recipe to the broth that I use while I am fasting. So I do a water broth fast, if you will, but there's no way I'll do bone broth. There's just no way. And if anyone puts a comment, oh, like you should try bone, you don't know what you're talking about. All of the toxins in that animal's body, it's filtered through that marrow, and then that's what makes the broth. And while you're fasting and your body is like hyper absorbent, you're going to be putting that crap in your body. No freaking way. Like, don't do it. Make your own veggie broth. And I have videos about that, which I will post here as well. So I know this is a long video, and it's, you know, it's a lot to go through, y'all. It's a lot of research to go through, and I hope that you found it helpful, and that you're able to sort of either springboard your own research or your own, you know, I guess your own investigation into the research. That would be great. I highly recommend that you look into Dr. Fung, regardless of whether you fall into one camp or the other regarding veggies or animals for consumption. I highly recommend that you look into Dr. Greger's work for the same reason, that you look into Dr. Hall, that you look into the ball study. I'll try to leave a link to it if I can. And I highly recommend that you check out Walter Longo's research on fasting. It's really good. It's really good. All right, everyone, please give this video a thumbs up. I really do appreciate it. I will be posting very soon on this multiple day fast that I'm starting today, so that way you can see that you can do it and not die. Most people can. If you are breastfeeding, pregnant, or on medications, then, you know, like, just go talk to your doctor. If you have any concerns or any medical issues, like, talk to your doctor. You know, just don't listen to anybody on the internet. You got to figure out your own stuff. But like 99% of the people in this world can fast, and we have done that as a species for a very long period of time when we had no food. All right, everybody, thumbs up pretty please. Comment or question below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Subscribe if you haven't already done so to get more research on these issues, and I will talk to you in the next one. Until then, ciao.